Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my video on Scarlet and Violet era. Now this is going to be one of those videos where I'm not going to show any graphics whatsoever up on the screen. So, if you're going for a walk and want to pop your headphones in, if you're going for a drive and want to put it through your Bluetooth, if you're doing some housework and just want to pop it on the telly at home through the speakers and just listen, that's what this video is all about. So tune in and let's just have a chat about Scarlet and Violet era. Now, I guess the reason for this video, it's one of those times like, I don't know if you guys do this, and maybe you do, because I presume most people that watch this channel are probably somewhere between the ages of early 20s to 50, and probably the vast majority are more like between the ages of 27 and 35, where, we have gotten back into this hobby, whether it's from an investing standpoint or a collecting standpoint, and we've got madly engrossed in it again. It's like we're reliving that nostalgia from our childhood. And you might have, like me, random thoughts about Pokemon cards at work, at the gym, in bed before you go to sleep, in the shower, at all different random times, thinking, oh, I've come up with these great ideas. And for me, I had the headphones in at the gym tonight, and I just thought about Scarlet and Violet. And I wanted to share my thoughts about the whole Scarlet and Violet era with you. Before we delve into it though, the Shiny app, they are the sponsors of today's video. I suppose this is the one graphic that will come up on the screen. There's an all-new app out. Lots of you guys have already downloaded it. So the creator, Cody, is incredibly thankful. You can add in all your singles and sealed collection to the Shiny app. It's going to give you all up-to-date TCG and other data points for pricing. You can add in, like I said, sealed singles, graded cards. There's not only Pokemon TCGs, there's other TCGs on there. It's a really clean, smooth app. And if you ever find anything missing, just email Cody and he'll upload it within 24 hours. The data refreshes constantly, so you're completely up to date. It's a really clean app. I've transferred my whole collection into there and I love using it. It's nice and easy. Anyway, on to today's topic, Scarlet and Violet. Now, one more thing. I just wanted to say a massive thank you before I jump into it. Thank you to everyone that tunes into the videos, and thank you to everyone that shares the content around. Also, a big thank you to anyone that's a member of the channel. It means a lot. The support to the channel has been great. It's been growing steadily. Of course, we'd love to see it grow more. Why not, hey? That would be awesome if it can continue to grow. I hope it does. But yeah, just wanted to take a couple of moments to thank everyone for tuning in and watching and, listening to a 33-year-old Aussie bloke talk about Pokemon card investing. So on that, let's actually talk about Pokemon card investing. So Scarlet and Violet era. Now, I've talked about this in very brief detail before, but I suppose I want to expand on it a bit more in this video. And if you look at Pokemon card investing as a whole and go from the beginning of time, so to speak, which is in English was 1999 through to now, which is 2024, we've got a huge amount or a huge block of time in there. We've got a huge block of time in there where you've got so many different eras and perspectives and sets and different types of cards and based on different generations, of course. And I suppose you just ask yourself, what is going to make a good Pokemon card set in the long run? And then you can look at each era individually, whether it's Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon, X and Y, Black and White, and so on forth until we get right back to base set and go, what actually makes a super successful era, and therefore what makes a super successful set? And when we look at the block of Scarlet and Violet as a whole era, how is that going to compare to others? And ultimately, if you're in this for the long run, how's it going to compare long term? Because the fact of the matter is, it's extremely multifaceted what actually makes a Pokemon card set successful. We can try to turn it into equations like I have, but then, there's emotion that comes into Pokemon card collecting because there's nostalgia attached to it and there's excitement attached to it. And you can't put a price on nostalgia. It ends up wrecking equations. Now, like I said, I've delved into a few equations, which I think are pretty accurate. I've talked about top 10 hit price and the scarcity of the set, and which essentially works out to be a supply-demand sort of equation, and that can give you a bit of a future box price. But I suppose with that multifaceted approach or multifaceted reason why a Pokemon card set is worth money, there's so many things that come into play there. It could be, like I said, the total, the top 10 hits. It could be how big is the top chase card? How big is the top 3 chase cards? What's the total overall value of the set? Because there are sets, particularly sets like Paldea Evolve, which have such depth of illustration rares. There are sets like Lost Origin, with a pretty good trainer gallery in there, where all the trainer gallery cards are worth decent amounts of money. So is it that? Is it the PSA 10 pricing of cards? Is it just the overall community sentiment for the set? Is it the artwork and the illustrations? And I've done homage and credit to some of the artists that do Pokemon cards. What I'm getting at is it's so multifaceted what ends up creating this equation to being a popular Pokemon card set, and ultimately, if you've got that across multiple sets, a popular Pokemon card era. Now, we can delve into this a little bit more, and I'll get into Scarlet and Violet in more detail in a second. But if we rewind the clock back a little bit, let's go to XY era for argument's sake, right? And I look at XY booster boxes and it perplexes me a little bit. But then, the light bulb goes off and I can put my analytical hat on rather than my emotional hat on and go, you know what, it sort of makes sense. Because XY era was quite polarizing. Personally, I'm not a fan at all. Now, I know that's going to offend some people, and some people absolutely love it. Some people love the artwork, the mega evolutions that come with XY era. Some people reconnected during XY because of the Pokemon Go app. Some people maybe were 12 years old and only just starting collecting when the XY era come out. So that was their era. I get that. But for me personally, I think XY was quite polarizing because those mega evolutions, a lot of people looked at the artwork and went, you know what, it's not really for me. That doesn't mean it's bad. Because there's plenty of people that love that artwork, that love that era. And even some of those, I suppose, secret rares, or they're almost like the first looking alternate art Pokemon cards, the ones from like Breakpoint, etc., where, you had the Gyarados or the Mewtwo, for argument's sake, they were good looking cards. But when it comes to those Mega Evolutions, it just didn't do anything for me. The break cards they were inserting into sets, it wasn't a vibe for me. And I think as a result, that the overall community sentiment was some people love it and some people didn't go much on it. And when you get that discrepancy, you end up having an era where people look back and they don't go, you know what, that era absolutely smashed it. That era was just amazing. A lot of people look back at XY and some go, I love it, and others go, I can take it or leave it. And if we look at box prices, booster box prices, that is, of course, there's some amazing elite trainer box prices. But if we look at booster boxes, there's really 2 sets that stand out, isn't there? Phantom Forces with that beautiful silver Dialga and, the Mega Evolution Gengar inside there. You've got 2 Mega Chase cards to go for. And then, of course, Flash Fire with the Charizards. You've got, 3, 4 Charizards, which are all worth very decent money as raw cards and also very decent money as PSA 10 cards. But then you look across the rest of the era and, you could pull the top hits out of a card and even grade them all as a 10. And it's not even getting close to the booster box price. So when we look at XY era, which are now, in some sets over 10 years old, like Flashfire must be pushing, or probably is 10 years old, isn't it? 2014 that came out, I believe. Anyway, the point is, for such old Pokemon card sets, the value of some of these boxes isn't really setting the world on fire, because you've got latter Sun and Moon sets like Cosmic Eclipse, Unified Minds, Team Up, of course, Unbroken Bonds, that are worth more than XY boxes that are a further, 4 or 5 years older than those sets. So why is that? And, the answer, I suppose, to that question, like I said, when you take the emotion out of it and just put the analytical side in there, is really to do with the sentiment towards the set. And the sentiment comes from that whole multi-factored approach. What's a PSA 10 worth? What's a raw copy worth? How expensive overall is the total set price? What are the top 5 hits? What is the number 1 chase card from the set? How much depth of chase cards comes in the set? How nice is the artwork inside the set? And we look at things like Sun and Moon era, and look, all of this can change. Sentiment can change over time. Just because it doesn't have it when a set first comes out doesn't mean it's going to have it in the future. Or just because it's the hot thing when it comes out doesn't mean it's going to be hot in the future. It can chop and change. Like I can tell you EX era, which is one of my favorite eras because I was collecting heavy during that era. I was opening heavy, selling heavy on eBay, and Pokemon wasn't that popular. Yes, people liked Gold Stars. Gold Stars were nice. People did, they were what people were buying. But the overall, volume of eBay sales and volume of Pokemon card sales, it was down. It wasn't a popular era. EXs, people weren't looking at them going, I pulled a Articuno EX or a Salamence EX or a Skarmory EX. Like Skarmory EX was nearly like $3 card, throw it away. It's not even worth having. Whereas now you pull a Skarmory EX with a silver border and you go, that's a nice Pokemon card. So sentiment can change. Now, when people look back on the EX era, they go, that is one of the greatest eras of Pokemon cards ever made. And there's a few reasons for that. We had, very strong, or it's the first movement into tiered hit rates. So before it was basically, 1 in 3 packs gets a holographic Pokemon card, and every single holographic pretty much should have the same pull rate. Like if you open a base set booster box, you've got just as much chance of pulling a holographic Charizard as you do a holographic Magneton. So it was our first step into tiered pull rates where, you could get reverse holos, you could also get the EX cards, and then the ultimate, which was the Gold Star cards. Now, not every EX set had Gold Stars, but it was our first step into, I suppose, that gold. And that era is now looked upon as, the community sentiment towards it for all those reasons: tiered pull rates, difficult pull rates on Gold Stars, PSA 10 pricing, artwork, new mechanics, raw pricing, the rarity and scarcity of the boxes themselves. People look back and just go, that is a phenomenal era. Now, transferring all that knowledge into Scarlet and Violet, and this is where I'm going with the argument, we need to look back like, let's almost think if it's 10 years in the future or 15 years in the future, if people are looking back to Scarlet and Violet, does it have enough going for it to be an extremely successful era? And I suppose if we rewind back, and we don't know what's coming after it, so it makes it a little bit hard, but if we pretend we're 10 or 15 years in the future and we look back on Scarlet and Violet era and we go, what does it really have going for it? The first thing that comes to my mind is it has phenomenal artwork. Like it's almost like a new era into artwork. The illustration rare / special illustration rare really has something going for it. It's also the first era, of course, we've moved to silver borders to align with Japanese Pokemon cards. So that seems sort of new and fresh and a bit different. Personally, I preferred the yellow borders. I liked that difference between Japanese and English cards, but some people probably prefer the silver borders. Now, I think, so there's a couple of positives there, or there's a couple of things I feel that are going for it. But the other thing that comes into mind with it is, where are the big chase cards? Because ultimately, if we look back to big eras with booster boxes that are worth big prices, it's always got big chase cards inside it. Like I said with XY era, Phantom Forces, you got that Silver Dialga, you got that awesome Mega Gengar. If we look to Flashfire, you've got those Charizard chases that are worth lots of money, particularly the top hit there, the Mega Charizard EX, in a PSA 10 going for big dollars. If we fast forward to the best sets in Sun and Moon era, like Tag Team with that Latios, Cosmic Eclipse with the Arceus Dialga Palkia, and there's a trainer inside there. There's lots of money. The Lily from Ultra Prism, there's just big chase cards. Even Burning Shadow, that is a terrible set, but it's got a super hyper rare Charizard inside it, which is worth big money as a PSA 10. So people will go Charizard hunting in that set just to have a crack at it. If we fast forward to Sword and Shield era, and I think this is the biggest difference I still see between Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. Now, Scarlet and Violet could knock the skin out of the game with the upcoming sets. And also, like I said, sentiment could change. There's nothing to say that people don't look back on Temporal Forces in 3 years' time, and all of a sudden these top chase cards move from $60 to $80 chase cards to $150 to $200 chase cards, and all of a sudden box pricing goes through the roof. So it can change, but let's look at it where it is now, because we can't work off what it might be, we can work off what it is right now. And if we look at Sword and Shield, I would say one of the biggest differences I see is, even battle styles. Like, people will chase that Tyranitar. People will chase those Urshifus. People will chase that Empoleon. If we look at Fusion Strike, you've got the Gengar and Espeon, which are just absolute bangers. Even Chilling Reign with, obviously that Blaziken, which is such a strong hit. And then, of course, there's no need to even talk about Evolving Skies. That's been talked to death about how many chase cards there are inside it. Brilliant Stars with the old Art Charizard, Lost Origin with the Giratina, Silver Tempest with the Lugia. My point that I'm trying to make is every single set has a chase. it's got that dopamine potential rush that if you pull it, it's going to be awesome, both from a personal perspective, and then if you're a streamer or a YouTuber and you're opening these sets and you're going chasing for it, it has the draw in for people to want to watch because you've got big chases that you could possibly pull. Like if, for argument's sake, you had two poker machines and they both cost $5 to play, and one has a grand jackpot of $20,000 and one has a grand jackpot of $1,500, and maybe even the $20,000 harder to get. Maybe your odds of getting the $20,000 jackpot are harder of getting the $1,500 jackpot. It's like human temperament will just move towards that. Why? Because there's a bigger carrot in front of you. There's a bigger chance of getting something more impressive. And the same thing will get transferred into the Pokemon card world. It's human nature. People want to chase the bigger hits. That's why base set packs go for so much. That's why base set booster boxes go for so much. That's why Plasma Storm booster boxes, although there's hardly any depth of hits, goes for the most out of the whole black and white era. Why? Because people can pull that gold bordered secret rare Charizard. That's why Burning Shadows booster box is worth what it is, because if there wasn't that Charizard in there, it'd be arguably the worst Sun and Moon set made. It's why Team Up goes for so much. It's why Evolving Skies goes for so much. So what I'm getting at is the only thing left, I think, for Scarlet and Violet to be touted as a good era, because the community sentiment towards it is getting better and better, it seems, as each set comes out, and deservedly so. I think it was new and it scared people a little bit when it first came out because it was new. There was so many changes made to both the artwork and the silver borders and the rarities, etc., 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 the pull rates, for argument's sake. We come off this massive high from Sword and Shield era, but people are now getting more comfortable with it and liking it more and more. The community sentiment's really picking up. But from my perspective, and people can agree or disagree, the one thing I think it's missing to go down as a really, really good era is just those big hitting chase cards, because that's what's going to make people want to open the boxes in the future. And like I said, that could change. The sentiment towards sets and chases, there could be sets that don't get reprinted, for argument's sake, and that pushes prices up. So anyway, like I said, sometimes we have thoughts when we're at the gym, in the shower, going to bed, and I just needed to get all those thoughts about Scarlet and Violet off my mind and across to you. So hopefully you've enjoyed listening. I'm Michael, this is PokeOz, and I'll catch everyone next time.